Now that we are all set, let's get the official program started. We really do have a marvelous program for you, highlighting incredible heroes who have helped redefine justice, not only in the past year, but also across their storied careers. We are honored to share their inspirational stories with you tonight. So I'm going to ask folks if they could stop talking and really listen. We're going to start bringing folks on stage. It is an honor to introduce the chairperson of NLADA's board, Rodia Thomas. Rodia serves as executive director of Mid-Penn Legal Services, a not-profit law firm that provides civil legal services to low-income individuals and survivors of domestic violence in 18 counties in central Pennsylvania. Rodia also served as president of the Pennsylvania Project Directors Association. Rodia has received several awards, including the Plan Excellence Award, the Outstanding Minority Scholar Award, the Women of Excellence Award, and in 2002, she was named as one of 50 minorities of influence by the American Lawyer Media. Rodia is currently the current chair of the African American Project Directors Association and is the gracious chair of the NLAD board. You know, I was serving on the board when we transitioned from Kelly Thompson, the public defender from Wisconsin, to Rodia's leadership. And while we all thought that there was a playbook to do this job, the pandemic had other things in mind. And, you know, her steady leadership, the continuity of her leadership during what was a very difficult, once-in-a-lifetime pandemic. We also had a search for a new president and CEO, all happened under the steady hand and guidance of Rodia Thomas. So without further ado, here's Rodia. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and certainly thank you to Stan, my colleague on the board. The work that we did on the board was not just one person, it was all of us working together. And so thank you, Stan. Also, thank you for your leadership on the NLADA board and in our equal justice community. As you heard Stan said, he is a lifelong public defender. So good evening again, everyone, and on behalf of the NLADA Board of Directors, I'm honored and privileged to welcome you to the 2020 Exemplar Awards Gala. This is the first time we were able to meet in person for 2 years, and I am so glad that we are absolutely in this wonderful space and that all of you are enjoying yourselves. And it's so nice to be in person with everyone again. Everybody looks great, and from what I can see, where I was sitting and now that I'm standing, everybody's having a wonderful time. The theme of this year's gala is sustaining racial equity and hope. And it is so relevant during this pivotal time in our history. As many of you know, NLADA has been in the forefront lines fighting for racial equity for over 100 years. We are America's oldest and largest nonprofit association dedicated to excellence in the delivery of legal services to those who cannot afford counsel. NLADA has pioneered access to justice at the national, state, and local levels and works to establish and has strengthened the nation's public defense and civil legal aid systems. There is no other organization that touches on all access points of poverty like NLADA does. With that, NLADA is uniquely positioned to lead this effort in advancing racial equity and access to counsel in America. NLADA members dedicate their lives to promoting equity and justice and are positioned to be change agents. As civil legal aid and public defense attorneys and staff, legal navigators, client and community advocates, and private bar allies, we witness and fight against the intersectional symptoms of systemic racism every day. We hold the collective power to bring about sustainable change in advancing racial equity in America. It brings me joy every year to celebrate the leaders who are committed to these values at the Exemplar Awards Gala. We are honored that so many of you have joined us this evening to support the advancement of racial equity and access to justice. And now it is my distinct pleasure to introduce NLADA's President and CEO, April Frazier Kamara. When April was chosen to lead NLADA, I knew she was perfect for the role. She has been a champion for equal justice for 2 decades. She's a graduate of Howard Law School. April worked as a public defender in her hometown of Memphis, Tennessee, and at the Public Defender Services here in the District of Columbia before joining NLADA. She has been a part of the NLADA leadership team for the past 5 years, most recently serving as Vice President for Strategic Alliances and Innovation, and prior to that, she was the Chief of Lifelong Learning. She is also a co-founder of NLADA's newest section, the Black Public Defender Association. So it's my great honor and distinct pleasure to introduce April Frazier Kamara.
Okay, if you can hear my voice, clap 1 time. If you can hear my voice, clap 2 times. Yes, I'm a mother of a 7 and a 9-year-old, so this is what I need people to do. I know we're having a great evening, but I really need everyone to quiet the conversations where we can give due honor and respect to the amazing awardees that we're here to honor on tonight. So thank you, Rodia, for such a kind introduction. And also I would like to say thank you to Rodia for your unwavering service and commitment to NLADA. You've been an amazing source of support to me in my new role as President and CEO. I also would like to begin with a traditional African tradition of honoring those who have come before me. And on this evening, I would like to give a special acknowledgement to Joanne Wallace. Thank you, Joanne, for your over 2 decades of service to the NLADA community. You are truly a transformational leader, and you've been such a great mentor to me and so many others within this community. So on tonight, we want to say thank you on behalf of NLADA. I would also like to say thank you to the 2002 Exemplar Gala co-host, Theen Evangelist from Gibson Dunn, Joan Haratani from Morgan Lewis and Bacchius, Lisa Lowry from Mutual of America, John Schultz from Hewlett Packard Enterprise, Joanne Wallace from the NLADA Insurance Program, and Jim Chosey from US Bank. We also want to give a special thank you to our 2022 Exemplar Gala Committee and our NLADA development team. Thank you, Aileen Moffitt, Kate Denman, and Lisa Welch for your amazing work to bring us all here today together. I would like to say that this moment is very memorable for me on tonight because it is an honor to stand before you for the first time as the new president and CEO of NLADA. I would like to personally say thank you to many of you for your support and your encouragement during my first few months in this role. So the Exemplar Gala is actually one of my favorite events. It's an evening where we come together to celebrate the amazing work in our community. It is our first time gathering together since 2019, and as many of you all know, a lot has changed in this world since 2019. The COVID-19 pandemic forever changed our lives. It exposed the very deeply embedded disparities in our nation, but it also showed a disproportionate impact on low-income and communities of color. And we know through our work at NLADA that the economic impact of COVID-19 has fallen most harshly on the communities that we serve. During the pandemic, we also witnessed the killing of George Floyd by Officer Derek Chauvin. For many of us, the killing of George Floyd changed us forever. America cried out for racial justice and a commitment to ensuring that his death would not be in vain. And at NLADA, we stood up as a community to use that moment in history as a tool to propel us forward towards reckoning with our past and our current issues with racial injustice and white supremacy. At NLADA, we answered the call. In the fall of last year, we launched our new NLADA Racial Equity Initiative. And through that initiative, we are working to pull together the collective power of our civil, defender, private, and corporate community to center racial equity in our fight for access to justice. And on tonight, our theme is sustaining racial equity and hope. And as leaders within the equal justice community, you understand that our work on racial equity in this country is more important than ever before. The Buffalo Massacre is yet another horrific reminder of the critical work that we must do to end racism and white supremacy in America. And we know that we cannot do this work alone. We need the support of the private and corporate community. The civil rights era reminded us, and it demonstrated the power that we have when social justice advocates come together with the business community to unite around a common cause. This year, NLADA united with our corporate community to send 2 letters of support to Congress. The first letter in support of the Equal Defense Act, and the second one to support funding for the Legal Services Corporation. We leveraged the support of over 200 general counsels from corporations across America through these campaigns, and we know that there is power in our collective voice. So on tonight, we are uniting to fight for access to justice, and we know that there can be no true access to justice without racial justice. So on tonight, we would like to thank each of you for your commitment to racial equity and access to justice. We especially would like to celebrate our 2 exemplar honorees, Tony West, Senior Vice President, Chief Legal Officer, and Corporate Secretary at Uber. And Deborah Goldstock-Ringel, General Counsel, Secretary, and Chief Ethics and Compliance Officer at Accenture Federal Service. I am also super excited to celebrate our Kutak Guide Prize winners, Aiden Castillo and Fred McNamara. Each of our, let's give them a hand. Each of our awardees on tonight exemplified true leadership and an unwavering commitment to advancing racial equity in America. So as I bring my comments to a close, I would like to remind us of a quote from Nelson Mandela, which states, "I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. I felt fear myself more times than I can remember, but I hid it behind a mask of boldness. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear." So as we embark upon the challenging road ahead, I would like to encourage each of you to find your mask of boldness. Be bold, be courageous in your fight for racial equity. Use your power to conquer fear and advance justice. So again, thank you tonight for being here for the 2022 NLADA Exemplar Award Gala. I will now turn the program over to Jennifer Blunt, representing the Robert J. Kutak Foundation, to present the Kutak Dodds prizes.
Good evening, everyone. The Kutak Dodds prizes are named in honor of the late Robert J. Kutak, a member of the First Legal Services Corporation Board, and the late Kenneth R. Dodds, former partner at my law firm Kutak Rock. On behalf of NLADA and Kutak Rock, I'm pleased to present the 2022 Kutak Dodds prizes to Aiden Castillo, Director of the Immigrants' Rights Practice at Centro Legal de la Raza, and Fred Nakamura, Associate Director of Litigation Policy at Neighborhood Legal Services of Los Angeles County. Aiden, would you join me on stage? Okay. Aiden has a remarkable personal story that is matched by her career in immigration law. Aiden grew up as an undocumented immigrant, experiencing the threat of deportation firsthand. She became one of the first undocumented immigrants to be admitted to the practice of law in 2011. Aiden has represented hundreds of immigrants in obtaining lawful status and citizenship. She specializes in representing immigrants who are at risk of imminent removal from the United States. Aiden has also spent years of advocacy and public policy work. This includes advocating to expand DACA. Also, as an advocate for higher education for immigrants, Aiden co-founded Scholars Promoting Education Awareness and Knowledge. This group was one of the first student-led support groups for undocumented students. We are so honored to give you a glimpse into Aiden's inspiring story. If you could please take a look at the video with us.
I am Aiden Castillo, and I am the Directing Attorney of the Immigrants' Rights Practice at Centro Legal de la Raza in Oakland, California.
My decision to become an immigration attorney and to specialize in removal proceedings, or what most people know as deportation defense, really originates from my lived experience. I am an immigrant. I was born in Mexico, and I was undocumented for many years in the United States. And when I was a child, my family and I were put into removal proceedings. And that experience really was life-changing for me in the most difficult way. I remember that even though I was only a child when that happened, I made a commitment to myself, I made a commitment to my parents and to my community that I would fight against the injustice that is deportation. I remember having this realization that I didn't want anyone else to experience the fear, the uncertainty, and the sense of powerlessness that I felt as a child in removal proceedings. For people who are deported, the consequences of being deported from the US are devastating, and many times those consequences are irreparable. It means that you are torn apart from your family, from your community, and for many people, deportation happens after having lived in the United States for many decades. It means that they are leaving behind the country where they have built an entire life. For other people, deportation can also mean that they will be forced to return to their country of origin, where they face potential violence, torture, and even death. So despite these incredibly high stakes, the US government forces immigrants to fight this system alone. And that occurs today because the US government does not provide government-funded attorneys to immigrants who are in removal proceedings. I've been really fortunate to be a deportation defense attorney and to dedicate my career to this work. I am really a part of an amazing group of advocates, and I feel humbled to have been nominated for this award by my colleagues, from whom I have learned a tremendous amount how to be a more bold and zealous advocate. And I am really appreciative to the NLADA, to Kutak for this award, and really to be in the company of current and past honorees who have had a bold vision for justice. So thank you very much to my community who inspires me every day. Thank you very much to you for this award.
So, on behalf of NLADA and the Robert J. Kutak Foundation, I am pleased to present the Defender Kutak Dodds Prize to Aiden Castillo.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be back in DC, and I wanted to first and foremost thank NLADA, the Robert J. Kutak Foundation, Robert Rock Firm. It is really humbling to receive an award for something that really has been the biggest privilege for me. When I was 11 years old and I decided to become a deportation defense attorney, I could have never imagined what that journey would have looked like for me. I certainly could not have imagined that our immigration system is so broken that I would go on to be undocumented for another 30 years, and that today my parents and my family remain without status. That, unfortunately, is the reality for millions, over 11 million immigrants in the United States, who by any other measure are Americans. So I feel incredibly humbled to receive this award, not on my behalf, but truly on behalf of everybody that has helped me in my journey, all of my mentors, criminal defense attorneys who partner with me to ensure that our clients who are non-citizens are not faced with the double punishment of deportation. Each year, thousands of immigrants, many of them children, many of them families, are forced to face deportation proceedings because our government does not provide funded removal defense attorneys. It really is an honor for me to dedicate my career to this work. It is an honor to lead and mentor a team of advocates that are working to dismantle a system that has torn apart thousands of families. And so I really am so appreciative to have a platform, an NLADA, that recognizes this work, because it truly is work where people's lives are at stake. Thank you very much for this recognition. It is my privilege. It is something that I remain committed to do for the rest of my life until hopefully there is no longer a need for removal defense attorneys.
So, the award, thank you. So, Fred Nakamura is this year's winner of the Civil Kutak Dodds Prize. And unfortunately, he's not able to be here with us tonight, but I do know he was humbled to receive the award, and I know he would be here if he could. So let me share why Fred was selected. His incredible compassion and dedication are just the start. Fred has been helping the poor and underrepresented since 1976, first as a paralegal, then after law school with Neighborhood Legal Services for 9 years. Fred's approach to his practice is holistic. Wanting to increase his involvement with Asian American communities, he went to work for Legal Aid of Los Angeles. He established clinics to help clients with language barriers. Fred returned to Neighborhood Legal Services in 2000, where he has litigated numerous complex cases. Fred is always willing to mentor new attorneys, paralegals, and interns. Fred's contribution to the legal service community will expand far into the future. His direct services to his clients have been life-changing for his clients and their families. His mentorship to other advocates will influence their own success, present and future. Would you now join me in watching a short video to get a glimpse of Fred's inspiring story?
I'm Fred Nakamura, and I'm an attorney with Neighborhood Legal Services of LA County. I very much appreciate getting this award and this recognition, but it's very humbling to be personally recognized when my work has always been a product of great mentorship, my coworkers, and the training I've received. This award made me remember how many good coworkers I've had over the last 40 years. My accomplishment is directly related to the support and the efforts of my coworkers and the leadership of my program. I was very fortunate to have received very supportive management that allowed me to serve the community, and also the leadership that they provided to me. This award also represents not only my commitment to addressing the needs of the poor and disabled, but also the commitment that the country made by funding legal services in its war against poverty. In the 60s, this country made a national recognition that giving people's rights is useless unless you gave them the tools to exercise those rights. And that was basically the purpose of me becoming a legal aid attorney. Also, much of my effort was dependent upon the numerous times I used the resources of the national support centers, the backup centers, and the incredible cases that were brought by legal service attorneys throughout the country that transform consumer and tenant rights. And now that we have the internet, our ability to work together has been greatly enhanced, and we can use the full scope of the incredible legal service community that has been created in our fight against poverty. This organization has been key to whatever I have accomplished, and I thank you for this award.
Accepting Fred's award on his behalf is Yvonne Maria Jimenez, President and CEO of Neighborhood Legal Services. And I'm sorry I mispronounced your name even though you talked.
You're fine. Good evening, everyone. It's my honor and privilege to be here to accept Fred's award. He couldn't be with us because tragically his mother passed away a few days ago. Still kills me to to know that. I've known Fred for more than 40 years. He is truly a community lawyer with a lot of passion to make a difference for others, in particular those most vulnerable in our society. More than 40 years ago, when Fred was a new lawyer working in the poorest neighborhoods of Los Angeles County and representing tenants, he was known to bring a camera and a toolbox to his clients' homes. The first, to document the problems, and the second, to repair anything he could. More than 40 years later, and after decades of successful legal advocacy spanning multiple practice areas and impacting the lives of tens of thousands of people in Los Angeles County, little has changed. Fred still brings his toolbox to work every day. Earlier this year, you could find Fred walking up and down 16 flights of stairs to bring food, water, basic necessities to elderly and senior tenants living in 16 floors of a tenement without one single working elevator. Fred is a community lawyer with a significant passion to make a difference for those less fortunate than the rest of us. Neighborhood Legal Services has been blessed to have Fred working with us for so many decades. We are grateful to you for honoring him this evening and giving him the 2022 Kutak Prize for exceptional work in civil legal aid. Fred asked that I read a few sentences for him, and so I'll end my remarks with his words. Thank you for this award. I should not be receiving this award alone. There are dozens of people who should be here with me. They are the ones who make it possible for me to do this work. They are the co-workers, mentors, trainers, and visionary program directors who have guided me to having an impact on my clients' cases and lives and to improve the economic status of so many in our communities. Thank you to all for this recognition. I am truly honored. Thank you.
It's a delicate mission. So, good evening, everyone. And I just want to welcome all of you once again to NLAD's 2022 Exemplar Awards. So my name is Jim Chosey. I'm the Senior Executive Vice President and General Counsel at US Bancorp, which is the parent company of US Bank, headquartered in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Hopefully you've heard of us. And I'm very honored to be here tonight. I serve as well on the board of NLADA and also as chair of its Corporate Advisory Committee. And as you may know, the Corporate Advisory Committee brings together executives from a wide variety of industries who are all dedicated to the principle of equal justice under the law. And we work together to support NLADA and also to expand the availability of quality representation to those who cannot afford counsel. And our two remarkable recipients of this year's NLADA Exemplar Award are really terrific examples of the kinds of legal executives that make up the committee. And the Exemplar Award is our opportunity annually to honor business executives who have shown outstanding leadership, vision, dedication, and commitment in promoting and supporting equal justice. And these are qualities that our two honorees tonight really have in abundance. Tony West, who's the Senior Vice President, Chief Legal Officer, and Corporate Secretary at Uber, and also Deborah Goldstock-Ringel, who's the General Counsel, Secretary, and Chief Ethics and Compliance Officer at Accenture Federal Services. Both Tony and Deborah are really incredibly accomplished executives, and they really exemplify the qualities that are recognized by this award, and they use their positions to advance equal justice for all. Tony, through his leadership on racial equity in the corporate legal world and also in advancing the policy priorities of the access to justice community before both Congress and the judicial system. And then Deborah, through her role as an inaugural member of her company's Inclusion and Diversity Advisory Council, and also her extraordinary pro bono practice on behalf of refugees and asylum seekers. So to present the first award tonight to Tony, I'd like to welcome Karen Lash to the stage. Karen has worked with Tony for a number of years in various different roles, including when they worked together at the U.S. Department of Justice. Karen's going to share more about Tony and his leadership on equal justice. So Karen.
Thank you, Jim. What an honor it is to help NLADA honor Tony with this award. It's hard to keep this short, since Tony and I go back all the way to 1990, when the LA law firm I worked at recruited him as a summer associate. I was in that interview when he told us private firm lawyers that he aimed for a job to advance the public interest. True to that declaration, he has indeed done so at every public and private sector job since. I saw it up close decades later working with Tony at the Justice Department when he was appointed as President Obama's Assistant Attorney General of the Civil Division and then Associate Attorney General. In those roles, Tony found truly novel ways to protect and prioritize consumers, voting rights, immigrants, and Native American communities. And my wife and I toast him on each wedding anniversary for his role and strategic genius in making marriage equality a reality. And as associate, he oversaw DOJ's Office for Access to Justice, where I worked, and he led us to most of our most impactful successes, like the department's historic first ever statement of interest on ineffective assistance of counsel, co-chairing the Legal Aid Interagency Roundtable, ushering a new era in federal support for legal aid, and securing nearly $500 million for legal aid to help people who lost their homes in the 2008 financial crisis. So no one should be surprised that Tony's habit of innovating for public good likewise shaped his contributions as general counsel at 2 Fortune 500 corporations. Under his watch at Uber, for example, Uber ended mandatory arbitration for individual claims of sexual assault or sexual harassment, joined the Free to Drive campaign to reverse fines and fees impacts on driver's license suspensions, and he coordinated with other GCs to urge Congress to preserve and expand funding for legal aid and public defense. Perhaps most notable in the spirit of tonight's gala theme is his leadership on racial equity in the corporate community. I don't think there's anyone more capable of leading that charge in bold and novel ways than Tony. And I can't help but add, he's also like the nicest guy in the world. So on behalf of NLADA and the countless people who have benefited from his 1990 pledge to advance the public interest, including my family, I invite Tony to the stage to accept the Exemplar Award. So I think I'm going to put it down.
Thank you. Wow. Well, it is very humbling. I told someone long ago that you should always take your name tag off before you speak. I didn't follow that tonight. First, let me thank April, Stan, and Rodia, and everyone at NLADA for this meaningful award. Jim, thank you for introducing the award, and thank you for your commitment to access to justice in the private sector. A special, heartfelt thank you to Joanne Wallace, who led this organization for so many years. You know, Joanne and I were sort of partners in justice together. I was in the government. She was out pushing us and pressing us. Now, of course, she serves as president of the NLADA insurance program. Let me also congratulate the other honorees tonight by your example. You remind us that closing the justice gap doesn't always come with grand historic gestures, but rather often in the persistence, sometimes quiet work that we choose to do every day in our lives and in our work. So congratulations. I also want to give a shout out to my many Uber colleagues who are here tonight. Thank you for sharing this evening with me, and thank you for being such an important reason why I love my job. And thank you, too, to so many. I know we have so many of Uber's outside counsel partners who have supported this work, have supported NLADA, and support tonight's event. So thank you for that. Look, I can't say enough good things about Karen Lash. You know, Karen has really dedicated her life to breaking down barriers for others, whether it's been her work as director of the Justice and Government Project at American University, or leading the U.S. Department of Justice's Access to Justice Office over a decade ago, or even when she is at home creating these colorful murals out of plastic bottle caps, using it as a teaching moment to local neighborhood kids and her neighbors on the environmental harms of single-use plastic. Karen has always moved through this world in a way that leaves the space she occupies better because she's been there. And that's why I was so fortunate to have her as a colleague in the Obama administration. That's why I'm so fortunate to have you present this award tonight. And it's also why I'm so honored to have been your friend for 30 years. Thank you. So I'm going to make this quick because I know we have halftime coming up and the bar is still open. Look, back when I was serving in the Obama administration, I worked in a building that folks called Main Justice. It's the Justice Department's main headquarters on Pennsylvania Avenue. And it was in a building that was built in the early 1930s. And so the interior is full of this Depression-era artwork. It's absolutely beautiful, including one of my favorites, a mural depicting black and white school children working together in a science classroom. You probably remember this one, Karen. And, I tried to walk past that mural every single time I went into my office because I loved it so much. I loved it because of its aspiration. You see, it was painted at a time when this city, Washington, D.C., was still a Jim Crow segregated city. And yet, 20 years before the legal integration of elementary schools in our country, this artist dared to imagine what justice could be. The reason this award is so meaningful to me, it's so special, is because it comes from an organization that for over 100 years has dared to imagine what justice should and can be. NLADA has, for more than a century, it's been you who stood up for those who often work the hardest but have the least. It's been you who have stood up for those who know not life's mainstream but its margins. Indeed, NLADA, as well as so many of you in this room, public defenders, private attorneys, activists, advocates, private sector professionals working pro bono, including some of my own Uber colleagues, all of you have been working so hard to keep that promise that we made to ourselves so long ago. Equal access to equal justice under the law. And in a country where 4 out of 5 criminal defendants can't afford counsel, where public defender caseloads are increasingly bigger and bigger, and yet they don't have the resources necessary to keep pace, where real wages are down, purchasing power is compressed, and low-income families last year did not get the help they needed for 92% of the legal problems they faced. Issues like eviction, domestic violence, access to health care, and increasingly I think we will see increased access to women's health care, where increasingly too many Americans feel that the justice system does not treat them fairly, especially if you're poor or if you're of color. In a country where this is the daily reality for so many individuals, access to justice, access to equal justice under the law, that's a pretty hard promise to keep. And yet we strive to keep it. You know, we strive to keep it because we believe the Bill of Rights is more than faded ink on aging parchment paper. We strive to keep it because access to justice doesn't belong to the Democratic Party or to the Republican Party. It belongs to us, each of us, you and me. It's an American value, a value as old as our republic. We strive to keep it because we know that as divisive and contentious as our national dialogue can be sometimes, we truly are what Bobby Kennedy told us we were 54 years ago this week on the night that he was killed. We are a great country. We are a selfless country. We are a compassionate country. You know, keeping the promise is not easy. And the need always seems to be greater than our ability to meet it fully. But the work you do, the work we do together, that matters. That makes a difference. And it speaks to the essence of who we are. One nation, indivisible. So thank you for this award, but more importantly, thank you for your continued commitment to this work. And please know, whether I'm in government or out, the public sector or the private sector, I will always, always be incredibly proud to stand with you in this cause.
All right. We're going to get started with the second half here. Really, it's like the fourth quarter. So welcome back. I hope you're enjoying the evening and visiting with friends and colleagues, placing lots of bids on the auction, except for number 27. It is my pleasure now to introduce Ted Howard. Ted Howard is a partner at Wiley. Ted is the firm's first full-time pro bono partner, where he oversees the firm's activities, initiatives, and fosters relationships with the public interest legal services community. I'm going to have to get Ted's card after this because we got plenty of work for you in New York City, Ted. Ted's going to introduce the 2022 Beacon of Justice awardees. Ted?
Thank you, Stan, and good evening, everyone. It's certainly my distinct pleasure and privilege to be here on this wonderful celebratory occasion for a number of reasons. On a personal note, over the course of several years of service on the ABA Standing Committee on Legal Aid and Indigent Defense, I had the opportunity to become very familiar with the NLADA and its vital, critical role in providing access to justice to those in need, and to work directly with some of its really remarkable, exceptional leaders like Joanne Wallace and Don Saunders and Radhika Singh. So any opportunity that I have to be of any assistance to the NLADA, I'm certainly honored to take it. Second, while we compete with one another in virtually all other aspects of professional life, all of our law firms commonly aspire to have our pro bono programs make a positive difference in the lives of those we serve that merits recognition by others. And we happily support one another fully in that effort. That said, without a doubt, there are firms that are standard bearers in our profession due to the magnitude and the consistency of their efforts and the impact of what they achieve on behalf of those on behalf of whom they render service. It is humbling to participate in the recognition of those leaders who set the standard by which all of our firms aspire. And so, NLADA is delighted to recognize the winners of the 2022 Beacon of Justice Awards for their 2021 pro bono work and other efforts to sustain racial equity in the community. These firms are vital partners in the NLADA's endeavor to dismantle racial inequities and to sustain racial equity across multiple fields. 18 law firms have qualified this year, showing the depth of the commitment of the private bar to address and resolve difficult issues related to sustaining racial equity. Their contributions are varied and encompass complex legal issues and cases and initiatives across fields including homelessness and poverty, landlord-tenant issues, voting rights, protection of ancient sacred religious lands, funding equal education, law enforcement misconduct, and so much more. Please turn your attention to a TV near you for a brief introduction film about this year's honorees.
Our firm cares so deeply about giving back to the communities where we live and where we work. Combating systemic injustices and preserving civil rights are the cornerstones of our pro bono work.
The Beacon of Justice Award provides meaningful recognition of law firms' pro bono commitments to the community.
On behalf of my entire firm, we want to thank NLADA for this lovely recognition. And more importantly, to thank NLADA for all of the work you have done and are doing to help lead the fight for racial justice and equality.
Since the founding of our pro bono program by the great Harry Bremond, one of the first Black attorneys in the Bay Area, these issues have been near and dear to our pro bono program, and our goal is not just to sustain, but to enhance and increase our work in these areas. And over the past year, we've done that.
Last year, 75% of the firm's attorneys provided pro bono legal services as part of their practice.
Everyone who participated was organized, engaged, and I think really inspired. We were all in on trying to make a difference with respect to this national issue.
The number of cases we've taken on in these areas has dramatically increased to include law enforcement misconduct cases in Orange County and Baltimore, voting rights cases in Louisiana and Georgia, a challenge to the last Confederate monument on public land in Maryland, wrongful incarceration cases, and a police racial profiling case in Washington, D.C.
We have started what is a first of its kind global effort called Real Rights, creating a resource for young people to understand their rights when they are engaging with police and understand what the limits of police power are and what they can do to remedy a situation where they feel like their rights weren't respected.
As leadership partner of the Racial Justice Project for Lawyers for Good Government, the firm dedicated 1,500 hours on 6 national racial legal research projects to help drive legislative and systemic change.
Over the last 2 years, we've represented our client, Mr. Akeem Smith, in a civil rights suit brought under Section 1983 to hold Maryland State Police officers accountable for their unlawful use of a police dog to attack Mr. Smith while he was handcuffed and pinned face down on the ground. We have no doubt that the facts Mr. Smith intends to prove at trial will establish that the Maryland State Police officers intentionally and knowingly used excessive force.
You don't get a whole lot of cases where you can say, I'm really proud from a social standpoint or a historical standpoint, and this was one of them. I mean, this is one of the few cases I've handled where my kids have actually said, golly, what a, we're glad you're involved in this.
Congratulations to all the winners of this year's Beacon of Justice Awards. They are Aiken Gump, Baker McKenzie, Crowell and Mooring, Deckert, Dentons, DLA Piper, Hanson Bridget, Hunt and Andrews Kurth, Kirkland and Ellis, Latham and Watkins, Mintz, Nelson Mullins, Squire Patton Boggs, Steptoe and Johnson, Stinson, Wilmer Hale, Wilson Sonsini, and Zuckerman Spader. Keep an eye out for the Beacon of Justice book that will be published later this summer, outlining the 2022 Beacon of Justice winners' commitment to pro bono work.
As I'm sure you can gather, there's a lot more to the stories. The full video is being played this evening on the screens around the room and will also be available to watch on the NLADA website in a few days. Additionally, this summer NLADA will publish a digital book outlining the path-breaking work of all 18 honoree firms. So much impactful work making such a difference. On behalf of the NLADA and all of us in the legal community, congratulations to this year's Beacon of Justice awardees, and thank you all for your unwavering commitment to racial equity and equal justice. Thank you.
I am back, and I'm here to highlight our second exemplar awardee, Deborah Goldstock Ringgold. So, as you've heard, our 2022 honorees have consistently demonstrated exceptional leadership and have used their positions to advance racial equity and equal justice for all, and Deborah's just such a perfect example of this. And to tell us more about Deborah and her work, I'm very pleased to welcome one of her oldest friends, whose friendship I understand was forged in college way back when, and made even stronger when they studied and suffered through the bar exam process together. And her name is Anjali Chaturvedi, and I'd like to ask her to come up now and just share a bit more about Deborah's dedication to equal justice for all. Anjali?
Good evening, everyone. Leader, brilliant, strategic, creative, committed, curious, capable, ethical, teacher, mentor. Any of those words, all of those words, describe my dear friend, Accenture Federal Services General Counsel Deborah Goldstock Ringgold, who I first met as Debbie Goldstock back in college. But the word that is the best word to get at her essence, at least from my vantage point, in witnessing her place in this world for over 30 years, is compassionate. She embodies compassion. We all may have a definition of the word compassion in our minds. Brene Brown is a research professor who studies courage, vulnerability, shame, and empathy. Dr. Brown says that showing compassion means being kind to others. It requires you to draw on your past experiences to express empathy and understanding towards another person. Expressing empathy for another person involves opening yourself up to the pain that this person is feeling. You need to do this so that you can truly understand what they're going through. For many of us, our first response when we face this type of pain may be self-protection. We do this because we're uncomfortable with what we believe this person is feeling. However, that isn't true compassion. True compassion is about simply being there for someone. It's about listening to what the person has to say and allowing them to fully feel and express their pain. As lawyers, of course, we're often called upon to help fix problems. But the starting point, the deep, thoughtful, caring place to start is with compassion. And that is the place that Deborah starts from. She listens with her whole heart. I could cite hundreds of examples. Let me just give you a couple, and then you'll know why she's getting this Exemplar Award tonight. Let me tell you where she spent the week of her 50th birthday. She went down to Laredo, Texas with lawyers from Jones Day and worked in a detention center to help people who were seeking asylum. That was January of 2019. But that wasn't enough. She went back in December of 2019 because there was simply more work to do and she wanted to do it. She listened to the stories, gave her clients the grace they needed to express their anguish, and then, like the gifted lawyer she is, she advocated for them and helped them become stronger advocates for themselves. And then earlier this year, she once again turned to support refugees, this time through Human Rights Watch and with Afghan refugees. Family after family, person after person, she listened. She leads by example. Along with other colleagues at Accenture and AFS, she promotes, amplifies, and participates in pro bono and in community engagement opportunities within her legal community. From expungement clinics to adoption clinics, to providing veteran services, to supporting victims of domestic violence and helping transgender persons with name changes, to probate and tenancy assistance, Deborah has devoted countless hours to walking the talk when it comes to legal support for those who need it. We often reference the tone at the top of organizations, how the tone at the top is important for setting culture. I think that's right. The tone at the top with Deborah is loud. It is clear that we can let compassion guide us. We can use our legal skills in a way to lift up those around us. My dear friend Deborah is a shining example of what is possible when we lead from the heart. I am honored to call her my friend, and I'm honored to present her the NLADA Exemplar Award for 2022.
Thank you so much. They say when you're the last awardee, the maxim applies, everything has been said, but not by everybody. So I did not expect that would also be true for my dear friend Anjali. Thank you so much. Thank you to I feel very loud already. Thank you to April and Aileen and Jim and Rodia and all of NLADA for this incredible award, and frankly for getting to be here tonight. It would have really just been an honor to be here, to get to celebrate the other awardees, the work that Aiden does and that Fred does, in a profession that is far too often adversarial and solitary. It has been wonderful to be here as a community where we can celebrate all the wonderful work that's being done and commit again to making justice and the legal system more equitable and accessible to all. So thank you so much. So I do have one story that is unique to me and I knew nobody else would say tonight, although I think Anjali gave away the punchline a little bit. It's the story of how I wound up in Laredo. So to be friends with Anjali, and in fairness, I've known her since 1987, so we beat Karen and Tony for whoever's counting. But right about the beginning of 2019, I was about to turn 50 and feeling very sorry for myself. And I was sitting at Anjali's kitchen table with her mother, Saroj Chaturvedi, who was a dear friend to me. And I was complaining to her, and she had turned 80 a few years earlier, and so was letting me talk. And when I finished, she paused and she said, well, the way I was raised, your life is in 4 parts. From 1 to 25, you're raised by your family and you learn from your teachers. From 25 to 50, you create your own family and you start your career. But at 50, you contribute to your community. And at 75, it was a little vaguer after that, but it really was about getting everything in order so that you're ready to move on. I was really focused on that turning 50 part. And so a few weeks after that, as Anjali said, I got to spend my birthday in a federal detention facility. It was exactly the way I wanted to spend my birthday and nothing I would have thought about before. And as I thought about that story for tonight, I really thought about, I'd been so focused on that third part, that 50 to 75 part. But when I went back to think through my life, I realized just how accurate she had been. From 1 to 25, I was raised by my family and learned from my teachers, but in my experience, they're the same. When you are raised by Ron Goldstock, and when you are the sister of Jenny Goldstock Wright, you spend your life with people who are relentless and vocal advocates for racial equality. When people talk about, well, that's the way things were, or that's the way things are, that is simply never what it means in my family. My grandfather, growing up in the 30s, integrated the Army base where he was stationed during World War II. He came home and he integrated his workforce. And I say that because when you talk about the family and the teachers you have, it has become so apparent to me that I am who I am because of the family that I came from. So at 20, I know my stepmother Judy is crying. It doesn't take much, but, and at 25, right, so then I move right into part number 2. I do 2 great things at 25. I marry my husband, Doug Ringel, and I become a lawyer. So Doug and I have raised 3 kids together, and tomorrow we leave for an 8-day trip rafting down the Grand Canyon. I can say not only is there nobody I would rather do that with, there is literally nobody else I would do that with at all. And I've had the great good fortune to be a lawyer and to be part of a profession that does so much. I did not know I would find my professional bliss working as in-house counsel for a company, but it turns out to be that is where I can make the most difference every day in the work that we do, in supporting our business, and in the work that I get to do with the wonderful employees of Accenture Federal Services. Anjali mentioned the work that Accenture does in the Legal Access Program, and I want to talk a little more about it because it's so important and because so many of you here today are involved. not just the lawyers from the Accenture legal team, but so many of our partners through our legal ecosystem, through our law firms that we work with, and through companies that we get to work with, to do the wonderful work of harnessing our passions and the legal skills that we've developed to contribute to our communities. And as lawyers with wonderful skills that you've all heard here tonight from so many people and the so many people who have joined us here, you would think that we would all be parts of workplaces and communities that are equitable and diverse already, right? We have the skills, we have the intention, and yet for so many of the places we work and the communities we live, we just don't see racial equity and we don't see inclusion. So that is part of why I'm so proud to be part of Accenture Federal Services. I know when Anjali talked about tone from the top, she was talking about me. But I'm really lucky to work with the CEO that in the summer of 2020 really pulled us all together, created the Inclusion and Diversity Council, and supported us and gave us the empowerment and the authority to make really important change where we work. At Accenture and Accenture Federal Services, we've made commitments, public commitments, to increasing the ethnic diversity and the gender parity at our company. And as importantly, we are putting forth the work to make the workplace itself more inclusive. That can be really hard for lawyers who are so used to listening in order to advocate, and we've really had to change, all of us, to listening in order to hear, so that we can have a workplace where everybody belongs, where it is inclusive to everybody, and where we know that there is always more work to be done. So, in addition to being a brilliant lawyer and a wonderful friend, Anjali is also my yoga teacher. So sustaining racial equity, I would say, is aspirational, but hope is what we need to have every day in order to get there. So I'm going to ask you, for those of you who are comfortable, to join with me in a meditation that Anjali uses to close her yoga class. Close your eyes if you're comfortable, but if not, just think to yourself. And this will take a few minutes, and I'll ask you just to stick with me. Think of yourself and think, may I be safe, may I be happy, may I be healthy, may I live with ease. And now think of someone you love. Picture them and hold them in your heart. And think, may you be safe, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you live with ease. And think of someone you don't know very well. It could be someone who you just met tonight, one of the other awardees, somebody you see every day and don't know well. Picture them and hold them in your heart. And think, may you be safe, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you live with ease. And now is the hard one. Think of someone with whom you're having a really hard time. Picture them and think, may you be safe, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you live with ease. And then I'll ask that we put it out to our whole world. And for the whole world, think, may you be safe, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you live with ease. And as Anjali says, take a good breath in, take an easy breath out. Thank you all so very much.
Good evening again. I'm glad everybody's enjoying themselves. And as chair of the NLADA board, I have to say each year, I'm incredibly impressed with all of our awardees. The Exemplars, Kutak Dodds, and the Beacon of Justice. It gives me great hope that the important work of all of us are engaged in has a real impact. Now I would like to invite NLADA staff, NLADA, and some special guests to the stage to share some important information about the work of NLADA. Anna?
Hello, thank you, Rodia. My name is Anna Ladd, and I have the pleasure of managing the NLADA AmeriCorps Vista program, which provides meaningful service opportunities in public interest law and expands capacity in public defender offices. In just the past 6 months, our Vista members have raised over $55,000 in-kind and direct support for clients. I myself served as a Vista member in the first year of the NLADA program. I started knowing that I wanted to work to increase access to justice, increase racial equity, but I didn't know exactly how. Through the NLADA Vista program, I learned that I love figuring out how to problem solve with limited resources, and I love providing career opportunities to other people in public interest law. Now I get to support Vista members and work with public defender offices to holistically serve their communities. Your donation to our Vista program will go to expanding careers in public interest law. Tonight, I am thrilled to introduce you to 2 AmeriCorps Vista alumni who used our program to jumpstart their careers in equal justice, Kristen Brown and Tanisha Perriette. So they're going to be sharing a little bit about their experience, and while they're sharing, please remember to hit that donate button in the auction bidding platform. Let's show future leaders that we are willing to invest in them today. All right, so Kristen, first can you share a little bit about where you served and what projects you worked on?
I served at the Office of the Alternate Defense Counsel in Denver, Colorado, and my project was focused on police and prosecutorial misconduct. So we started a database at our office that would keep track of incidents of police and prosecutorial misconduct and help our attorneys get access to that information efficiently.
Great, and Tanisha?
I also served the same year with Anna, and NLADA placed me at the New Orleans Public Defender's Office. I was one of their data system vistas, and during my year, I was able to develop some systems and procedures and databases to better serve our clients.
And can you explain a little bit about the impact you saw for your communities while serving?
I think what I found exciting about my project is that my office had been hoping to get this done for years, maybe even decades. They had this idea in like a folder that they never quite got to because they didn't have time because they were busy with all their cases. And I think what was so exciting about the NLADA Vista program is they were finally able to get to that because they were able to get support from me and a few other Vistas at my office. And so I think now the database is launching, and the attorneys, you can tell they're so excited because they know it's going to make it far easier to represent their clients, and they'll be able to get through their cases more effectively and more quickly and help more people.
And as for me at the Orleans Public Defender's Office, I worked really closely with our social workers and our public defenders. They, of course, had a really great idea of the needs of our clients. But when I came in and I started collecting data on the needs of our clients and their background and who they were, we were able to see some patterns. For example, we noticed that a lot of clients didn't have driver's license. So after seeing the numbers, we were able to reach out to organizations in the community and bring them together and get our clients what they needed.
And because Tanisha and Kristen are not yet done with their careers, can you go ahead and share what impact it had on you personally?
When I came into the VISTA program, I was just out of college and I knew I wanted to go to law school, but I didn't really know what kind of area of law I was interested in. And I was really excited by the program and I learned so much. My host site was so committed to giving me different kinds of learning opportunities. So some days they would have me observing trials, other days I would be going through police misconduct litigation, sometimes I would be going through criminal appeals cases for prosecutorial misconduct. So I got exposure to all these different areas, and I was able to both see what I was more interested in and also gain experience from trying a bunch of different things that helped me as I then applied for internships and jobs. So now I just finished my first year of law school and I'm working over the summer at the Second Look Project doing post-conviction litigation work, and in the fall I'll be working at the NYU's Civil Rights in the Criminal Legal System Clinic. And I think both of those experiences are things that directly flowed from my experiences in NLAD VISTA, and I wouldn't have been able to do them without that.
And as for me, when I saw this opportunity to be a VISTA with NLADA, I was really looking for an opportunity to blend my passion for public service and knowing that I wanted to have some impact on our legal system. After my year of service, I also completed grad school and I was able to utilize my AmeriCorps educational benefit, so thanks for that. And then soon after, I joined the Fines and Fees Justice Center that's here in DC, and I absolutely love being a part of their organization. And one of the selling points for me is that they already had a great working relationship with NLADA, so it really felt like a full circle moment for me.
Thank you so much, and don't forget the donate button.
Let's give the three of them another great round of applause. What's exciting for me to see is that Anna was a VISTA with NLADA before she became a staff member, and now she's running the program, so that's great. So I hope that through their stories and through their activities and their passion for this work, that you'll think about, yeah, this is something that I want to support. To invest in our future of courageous leaders. We're going to need those, as we all know. And remember, VISTA is just one of NLADA's leadership training programs. There are many other NLADA initiatives to help prepare emerging leaders. These candidates are our future, and they need our support to be successful. So please, if you haven't made a donation of any level this evening, support VISTA and all of the other NLADA unrestricted programs. I want to also thank you, and as we draw to the end of our program, I want to thank everyone on behalf of NLADA and the board of our board, and for all of your support. And tonight and always, what an evening and what an aspiring group of awardees. Thank you all. And now my colleague Stan is going to close us out.
You know, it's so great to be back in person after 2 years of our virtual Exemplar dinner. It's so inspirational this evening every year to see the amazing work being done by the Plus 50 crowd, as well as to know that the future is bright, as you saw with our young Vistas. You know, I know there are summer associates here and young attorneys. You know, you too can get one of these awards. You just have to put in the work over the next, 20 plus years. and never forget to represent the underserved communities, work with NLADA. Don't forget, how important the pro bono work, the work that the law firms and the corporate partners do is so important. I can tell you that, when I go into negotiations with the city and the state, having those corporate partnerships and those relationships is really important. So it really does take a community. It takes this legal community to come together, and maybe we can make racial equity not just a dream, but a reality. Thank you, and good night.